Yeah. So I thought about it. I'm like, when Verdansk comes, what are the top 10 things that that Warzone needs? What are the top 10s that we need from Warzone with the launch of Verdansk Season 3, April 3rd, right? And what are, of everything, what is it that they need to nail to actually finally legitimately be able to say Warzone is saved? So I have mine. I don't know if you've thought about a top 10 for you.
We'll go over yours and I'll make changes if need be. I'll copy off your work.
So number 10, so we need a balanced meta. There needs to be options. There can't be a runaway, clear as day, single weapon to use and everything else is unusable, right? The RPK meta can never happen again, right? The XM 400 round meta can't happen again, right? Because not that you couldn't compete with those things. Like, you could kill somebody who had an RPK, but the odds that, the advantages of that gun outweighed everything else. And then there have been times where, a single gun kills so much faster, it is just damn broken, right?
Makes the game boring too.
You can't have a single gun meta. It needs to be balanced. And I am totally fine balancing guns based on skill. I 100% agree with the idea that some guns should kill ridiculously fast. However, using them should be difficult. It should be, and not difficult in the Warzone 2 system of just adding random recoil patterns and random gun shake and other uncontrollable aspects. I mean, having a recoil pattern that is hard to use. There was a gun back in Warzone 1. It killed the AS, no, not the AS, the something 44. It was like a Cold War gun or an MW19 gun. I forget what it's called exactly, but it basically had like this ridiculous time to kill. It was, however, the recoil pattern was also ridiculous. It was like jaggedy and then it went straight like horizontal with a little flare at the end. Like when you look at the pattern, it was like, what the hell is that? Mm-hmm. And I could never get a handle on it. Like some people could use it kinda, but it it killed really fast, but most people couldn't use it. So it was kind of like it worked its way out, right? If you were skilled enough that you could use it, you had an advantage and it worked out great. Most people could not, and you had to be locked in. It was definitely, it was kind of like the recoil pattern, from what I understand, was like a really mouse and key heavy, like it really favored mouse and key players. Or like the Cold War AK, which had a very challenging recoil pattern because it bobbled a lot, right? I
liked that gun.
And so they killed a lot faster than other guns, but then there were other guns, so the EMT is another one. Where the EM2 would a straight vertical recoil pattern, right? Mm-hmm. But it was very severe. You had to really practice pulling down on the stick or it would get away from you. All of them had they were very different patterns and very different skills, and they killed very quickly if you could master them, right? The only one I ever mastered was the EM2. I love that gun. So, but they were all viable. Like you could pick up any of those guns, there was and then they had easy guns. You had the Kilo, you had the CM, not the CMT, that's a country music channel. The CM, what was the one? It was CM9, something like that. I don't remember. Somebody remind me in the comments. But it was a much more manageable, easier to use recoil gun, right? And so you had kind of this balance between the two, right? Where it was like the guns that killed faster were harder to use, and the guns that were easy to use took longer to kill, but you missed fewer shots, so you were more likely to get close to that, right? And so you had this tension between the two styles of play, and both of them were legitimate, right? That is what we need. We need more of that, and that negates the problem that we've talked about with the loadouts, where it's like, oh, there's just one gun and everybody runs the same gun, right? Because you have different ways of playing, and those different ways have viable guns to run. Okay?
Yep, I agree.
Meta. I want them to ditch that weird squad emote screen when you lose. You shouldn't get to dance around and emote when you lost the damn game, right? You win, you get to taunt everybody who's still in the lobby. You lose, spectate who killed you. Like it's just it, right? Like it used to be, right? You get the screen at the end, you win the BR, you win Warzone. Instead of having to listen to Graves, watch somebody do a dance, I think the whole Australian breakdancer move is my favorite thing that they've added to this game. Bar none. I use it all the time. It's hilarious. But when we placed 43rd, nobody should be dancing. You should be shamed. All right? Get rid of that. Get rid of delay zone. The movement needs to be snappy. And what I mean by that is there should not be designed interruptions at the end of movement and actions that you take. When you pull your shoot, your gun should come up and you should be ready to shoot. When you jump off a building, your gun should come up and you should be ready to shoot. When you slide and stand up, your gun should be up and you should be ready to shoot. When you sprint and you stop sprinting, when you dive, your gun should be up and you should be ready to shoot. All right? Right now, this game has so many delays, and they are better. They are significantly better than they were 2 years ago. However, they still exist and they should not. That is the sort of thing that is detrimental to bad players in ways that they don't understand. They don't understand why they died because they couldn't get their gun out fast enough, because they didn't plan ahead. Good players learn to adapt to it, and so it still impacts them, but not to the level that it impacts bad players, because bad players only can react instinctively. They do not have the skill set to plan ahead, right, and know exactly when to pop up from their slide so that their gun comes up in time for them to step out of cover. They will slide past cover and then not be able to shoot their gun because they're in a delay designed by the game. The delay zone's got to go. All right. Number 7, fix the vehicles. Vehicles are better than they've been in 2 years, and they're still not great. Need to be more responsive. The chopper, which is miles better than it was, needs to be improved still. It needs to be a little bit more nimble, a little bit better to drive. But the vehicles, there's a balance, and most of the time in Warzone 1, they struck a good balance between the effectiveness of vehicles and the ability to protect you and make transiting via those vehicles a viable option, where you're not just going to get gunned out of the driver's seat or have your tires popped or some bullshit, right? Like, they're a viable transit, and destructibility so that you don't have 4 Berthas driving around in circles in the final circle. There's a balance there, and we're still not at that balance point yet. Number 6, content. Content is one of the big drivers of Warzone 1 that made the first year and a half, 2 years of Warzone amazing. In fact, I'd even say partway through Warzone Caldera, right? They had great pieces of content, and I don't mean like an XP event. I don't mean open X number of crates to pick up tokens so that you can advance your paid event pass.
Like, have actual events in the game, but don't fuck with the regular playlists either.
The people who played from day one will tell you almost to a T that the most amazing moment that they can remember was the first day they opened Stadium, right? You had so many people dropping in to check out Stadium. It was such a chaotic, crazy thing that it's like one of those pinnacle moments I feel like the game has been chasing since, but they've been backing away from like how to approach that. You know, the closest thing we've had is they just dumped Superstore for some reason in some weird corner of the map, and everybody dropped there for like 5 seconds and went, all right, it kind of sucks to be here. And it would never turn into anything. It was never popular. It was like, you know, there'd be like one team on the roof of Superstore the whole game. And it's like, all right, well, that sucks. So they got to bring the content back. Good events, map changes, POI changes, right? Like the things that made Warzone exciting. They have to launch number 5 with as close as they can get to the OG Verdansk map. If they go and they make radical changes to the map, like if they do you cannot have Verdansk 92. Right? Like you have 84, which was a different map than OG Verdansk, so they changed all the POIs. You can't do Verdansk 92, where it's like everything's different again. It's not either map, right? But it kind of like, you know, it's like it's the same shape, but it's not all the same stuff, because the people that are coming back are going to be remembering Verdansk the way it was, right? And if they have to learn a whole new map that's not familiar to them at all, it's going to ruin the point of coming back. And if they have number 6 in mind, then there's a progression to the map, and it would be a great experience where you can experience Verdansk maybe in a different way, but you can't go just throw a brand new map version and call it Verdansk and have it land properly. The audio has to work. Number 4, the audio has to work on day 1. We cannot go 2-3 weeks with bad audio where you just hear your own footsteps reverberating around everything and you don't hear anybody else, and the crates and AC units and birds are the most loudest thing in your ears, and you have to go and like you have to do Artist War audio, or you have to buy Steel Series A50s for $250 in order to tune the audio so that you can hear it properly, right? Like they have to solve that problem. It has to sound good on day 1, right? Verdansk has to sound good because audio is so key in that map. The servers, number 3, need to step up. They are better than they've been in the last year right now, but they're not great. They gotta solve the problem of desync and bad servers. And ideally, they got to find a way to have people in like Oceania outside of North America be able to play the game, because it's a ghost town out there and they can't VPN in because of the anti-VPN system. So they're like double screwed. So they got to fix that. Those have to be good. The flow of the game, number 2, the second most important thing that they can do. The flow of the game has to be remembrance. Like it has to be what Warzone was when it came out, right? It has to get back to that core BR with COD features added to it. You got to get rid of the endless respawns, the flares, all of that. You have an expensive buyback and you have one gulag. No more jailbreaks, none of that. Get rid of all that. They got to get rid of fast travel, like zippy things. The balloons got to go, right? Add more zips. I'm all for add some more zips. Like, it'd be nice to have another way to get up to ATC rather than that interior zip line that they just stack claymores on. So different way, so slight changes like that. But the flow of it has to be, if you need to get across the map, you run, or you take a vehicle, or you take a chopper, right? These balloons, these portable drones, all of these things mess with the flow. Endless respawns mess with the flow, right? Part of what made Verdansk hit so well is that it was familiar. The gameplay loop was familiar to everybody who played BRs. And it was different significantly from multiplayer, that it was a very different experience. So people who only played multiplayer, who went to play Warzone, had to learn a completely new skill set, right? How to rotate, how to fight, how to survive, how not to throw your life away like you do in a respawn multiplayer match, where you can just yeet yourself at the same position 27 times and end up 4 and 27 and be like, oh, I had a good game. It's you yeet yourself at an entrenched position once, and it's like you're just watching the game from there on. Like, that sort of mentality needs to come back, because that's what made Verdansk work. If you have all the mechanics that you have now with balloons, everybody can fly everywhere, they can zip all over the place. There's no concern how with your rotations, you don't have to think about it, because you can always get out of jail with a balloon or with a portable zip or whatever the case may be. They also need to fix the timing, right? Part of what they did is they reduced the player count and they sped the timing of the circles up. So there's no time to stop and breathe. There's no time to think in the game, right? And while a lot of players complained that the middle of the game could slow down, it offered a lot of time for the game to breathe and for you as a squad to be able to enjoy the experience and plan ahead. You had a moment to stop and pull up the minimap and say, where are we going? What do we want to accomplish? Do we want to chase the edge of the circle and catch people moving in? Do we want to gatekeep somebody? Do we want to push to where we think the circle is going to fall and entrench and wait for end game? Do we want to find an attic to hide in like I did for years? Whatever the case may be, but you have that moment. You don't have that right now in BR. You are constantly under threat. There is constantly somebody dropping on your head, somebody popping and pushing, right? The frequency with which you have time to even like visit a buy station and look to see what's in it, it doesn't exist. Like, you hit a buy station, you got to pop and go, because someone's going to drop in on your head the second a flare goes up, right? The second you stop, someone's waiting for you. The Warzone was at its best when there were moments of quiet surrounding moments of intense activity, and they got to get back to that. That's what will make. And number 1, the most important thing that they have to do is get their anti-cheat in order. The top 3 things on this list: servers, the flow, and the anti-cheat. You need at least 2 out of the 3 to be near perfect for Verdansk to be successful. If you have bad servers and cheaters everywhere, everyone will hate the game and they will quit. If you have a bad flow and a decent anti-cheat, but the servers are trash and people can't play it, they're going to quit. You got to hit those, right? I'm sorry. If you have a good flow, but you have a bad anti-cheat and bad servers, right? People are going to quit. Those 3 things, you got to have those 3 things, like at least 2 out of the 3, ideally all 3 of them. And Verdansk will be a hit. But if they can't get at least 2 of those 3 things, it's going to flop. That's my list of what we need for Verdansk. Like, these things have to happen.